A resurfaced clip about a prophecy regarding the Iran versus Israel conflict shocks the world. You won't believe this, but a few years ago, an Orthodox priest, a friend of the channel's actually, shared a prophecy about the Jews launching an attack on Iran's nuclear facility.
Όπως ξεκίνησε, όπως είπαμε, από τη Συρία, Ουκρανία, Ισραήλ, αλλά μετά την Περσία, όταν χτυπήσουν το πυρηνικό πρόγραμμα της.
At the time, people brushed and waved him off. They said he was just another doomsday priest, out of touch with modern geopolitics. But now, just a few years later, that exact event is playing out before our eyes. Israel has struck Iranian targets tied to their nuclear program, and suddenly that old prophecy doesn't seem so far-fetched. Now, people are paying attention. But what's truly disturbing isn't what has come true. It's what he said would happen next. And if he's right, then the rest of his words aren't just prophetic, they're a warning. Let's take a look at exactly what he said and why it might be the most urgent prophecy of our time. But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. And some of you guys may or may not know my story. I actually come from this region of the world. I'm from a little country called Azerbaijan, Baku. I'm Armenian, and Azerbaijan and Armenia actually share a border with Iran. And Armenia and Azerbaijan used to be part of the Soviet Union, and that led to a massive ethnic cleansing of Armenians from Azerbaijan, which is why me and my family came out to the United States as refugees in the early 90s. And these type of topics tend to be near and dear to my heart, and I think they also are important to understand this region and the conflicts that keep rising up and how they may or may not affect us. So if you're new here, or if you're not new here, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. There's a huge percentage of the people that watch this channel regularly, unfortunately, are not subscribed, and we're right on the cusp of reaching 800,000 subscribers, and I would really love to celebrate that with you here. All right, let's jump into the video. Now, the topic of prophecy is very controversial. While charismatics give out encouraging prophecies like Planned Parenthood giving out condoms and birth control pills that they know may or may not work. Prophecy in the scriptures oftentimes are of prophetic utterances that are warnings. They're not always pleasant, which leads us to today's video. Father Peter Hears is a friend of the channel. I'm actually really good friends with his brother. I got connected with them through my buddy Neil, through Dirt Pearl Robinson. So we've had him on. And this is the first video that I came across of his years ago, where he started talking about a prophecy that was given by another Eastern Orthodox leader who has since passed on. So here's a clip from his Orthodox Ethos channel explaining a bit more about this prophecy. Check this out.
There's a prophecy recently commemorated and by Metropolitan Neophytos, which says that one day, this was uttered years ago, 20 years ago, by an ascetic in Crete, Theodore, an ascetic in Crete. He says, one day you'll be sipping coffee. You will hear the news that the Israelis have hit the nuclear program of Persia. That will be when the major worldwide events will start. At the same time, another sign, either shortly before or after, Erdogan, the head of Turkey, will fall. And this will be the sign of the great events that were mentioned in these prophecies.
Okay, so that's pretty alarming, because though we've seen Israel and Iran have splats back and forth, and Israel has argued that Iran has fought them through their proxy militaries like Hezbollah and Hamas, this is the first time we're seeing Israel directly target nuclear targets in Iran. There's also been speculation of the previous administration not allowing Israel to go after nuclear targets, or kind of putting parameters around them. Hey, you can send off a couple missiles, you can make a statement, but you cannot go after their nuclear programs. And of course, Israel has said that the reason why they went after this is because Iran was right on the cusp of having multiple nuclear bombs, which they would put into their proxies' hands. And goodness gracious, what could come next is pretty horrifying. So check out this clip of Metropolitan Neophytos of Moro explaining this prophecy that has been passed down. And what he's going to describe is a culmination of prophecies that he collected from different Eastern Orthodox saints regarding how these events will unfold.
Και στο τέλος των παγκόσμιων πόλεμων, όπως ξεκίνησε, όπως είπαμε, από τη Συρία, Ουκρανία, Ισραήλ, αλλά μετά την Περσία, όταν χτυπήσουν το πυρηνικό πρόγραμμα της Περσίας οι Εβραίοι, τόσο η Κίνα όσο και η Ρωσία θα υποχρεωθούν να αντιδράσουν. Οι προφητείες λένε των Αγίων, και πρόσεξε, όχι μόνο των Ελλήνων Αγίων, και των Ρώσων και των Ρουμάνων και των Σέρβων, ότι θα ρίξουν πυρηνικά. Και το εκπληκτικό, ξέρετε τι είναι? Ο Πούτιν και η Κίνα δεν το θέλουν αυτό. Το θέλει πάρα πολύ η νέα τάξη πραγμάτων. Τους εξωθούν. Αυτή είναι η λέξη η ελληνική. Τους πιέζουν.
Now, earlier in the video, I told you that I am Armenian. I grew up in Azerbaijan, Baku. Now, for those of you guys that don't know, Armenia is a country between Turkey and Azerbaijan. And Azerbaijan and Turkey have identified themselves at times as one nation, two states. So what he's going to describe next against Turkey, which, by the way, committed a massive genocide against my people, the Armenian people, in 1915, is pretty telling. Check this out.
Could you talk a bit about the significance of Turkey and what do you think in light of the prophecies, how will Turkey's involvement happen here?
The key sign of the disintegration of Turkey will be the end of Erdogan, according to the prophecies, and the new leadership will be inclined toward the West, and they will do the bidding of the West. And one of the key thing that will happen was they will close the straits and not allow the Russian military to pass to go to the Middle East, where a lot of their interests will be at stake. And that will happen during a short war between Turkey and Greece, because that's a prerequisite for the straits to be shut. There must be a war, fair state going on. Otherwise, they're not justified by international law. So the prophecies are that Turkey will strike Greece over the disputed 6 miles between the two countries. And they have long had this dispute, well-known dispute going back decades and decades. And they will get the nod for this because ultimately it will be in the best interest of NATO to shut the straits and keep Russia out from the Middle East. And so this is all very much, whereas 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it would be hard to see these things as possibly materializing, even though the prophecies go back many, many decades. St. Pius was proposed 30 years ago. And he was saying these things. Now you can see them literally in front of us. Erdogan's party has largely lost power in the last elections. He has said he's going to step down. And now we're on the verge of possibly the attack on Iran's nuclear facilities, which is also said as a sign to provoke the larger war.
So those are some bold claims, and they tie in Turkey, which has been hostile towards the Armenian people for a very long time. And they have a really sus leader in Erdogan. He hasn't been the most helpful. He is not the best, in my opinion. But I thought it'd be important for us to look into, are there other powers and nations that are kind of involving themselves in this entire situation? Is China and Russia stepping in? Is Turkey getting involved? And this is what we found. So we found this article, which is dated to May 2025, just 2 weeks before everything kind of hit the fan in the Middle East, the end of Erdogan, how the Turkish leader has engineered his own undoing. And in this article, it says that Erdogan also warned the Syrian crown prince that the Israel-Iran war can cause a massive refugee crisis. So is his demise imminent, or is he just close to the region? They're near Iran. They have some degree of relationship that they have to maintain with Israel, and he's just concerned about how this conflict could radically destabilize the region. So this prophecy, if we're going to be honest, is pretty much about World War III, which is horrifying to think about. Yet at the same time, there's a lot of other things that have to align in order for it to happen. Right now, there doesn't seem to be any slowdown of this conflict, and this video may age like milk. Perhaps Trump and the other diplomatic leaders can step in and help there be a ceasefire in this situation, or perhaps Israel attacking Iran leads to a rising up of the Iranian people and a new leadership that spawns up. As of the time of making this video, we don't know what comes next. But what we do know is something that I've been meditating on in the book of Philippians. Paul is writing a church in Philippi, and this is towards the end of Paul's ministry. He's going through it. But as he's going through it, he's encouraging them, which is really interesting. In verse 4, he says, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near." And if the Lord is near, who knows what comes next? If this is going to be ushering in the second coming of Jesus, we don't know, right? Verse 6, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God." we see this idea about not being anxious. And I think when we look at geopolitics and what's going on globally, what's been going on for the past several years, there's a lot to be anxious about if we've been paying attention. But the reality is that this isn't novel for this part of the world. As I shared some of my own story, people have been kicked out of different lands and wars have been happening in this part of the world for a very long time, right? But our encouragement in here is to offer up our prayers and petitions with thanksgiving and present those to God. And this word petition kind of stands out to me. If you guys didn't know, this is our trusty Logos Bible software, my go-to day-to-day software. One of the things I love about it is on this version and on the app, which I use daily, you can hit study on a word that you have questions about. And if I hit study, it takes me to what this word petition means.
Deesis.
Which is deesis in the original language. Now, if I go back here, petition versus the word prayer is different.
Prosephe.
Prosephe. This is prayer, place of prayer, a earnest prayer, a compassionate pleading, whereas this word is slightly different. It's a request. It's not just a pleading, it's an ask, right? That by our prayers, by our asks, we are to bring those to the Lord. And I'm not sure if you guys know this, but Logos Bible Software is now offering all of us here a free 60-day trial. If you go to logos.com/Ruslan, or if you hit the pinned comment, this software used to be primarily for like pastors and clergy, hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. Now it's available on a subscription model for like $12. So check out Logos, get your free 60-day trial. I love it. I use it every day. They're a friend of the channel, and they've been super helpful to us. Verse 7, it says, "And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." So it's the prayers and petitions that we offer that change our hearts and also gives us peace and guards us against all the craziness in the world. And then verse 8, Paul writes, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you." I love that Paul says, present your prayers, present your petitions to God, focus on good, beautiful, true things, and put in practice what it is that we've seen him and the apostles do. What does putting it into practice look like? Well, I think that practically looks like us practicing our faith, us leaning more into the scriptures, us leaning more into prayer, us leaning more into community and being a part of the local church. Because ultimately, we can't control what's going on in the Middle East and different presidents and governors and princes. We don't have direct influence over that. We can only control the things that we can control. And worrying about things that we can't control, I think, honestly, is a bit of a waste of our energy. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be informed. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be intrigued. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be prayerful. But worrying about it, I think, doesn't do any good for us. So if you want to see my full conversation with Father Harris, some people in the comments said we even look alike in this. You can check that out over here. If you want that free 60-day trial of Logos, we'll have that here. And if you want to see the video earlier this week about Iran potentially putting secret sleeper cell agents in the United States to disrupt what we have going on here and how they may be more dangerous, we'll have that over here somewhere. All right? I'll see you over there. Peace.